As a young man, William Thomas Overby enlisted in the 43rd Virginia Cavalry, more commonly known as Mosby's Rangers, led by John S. Mosby. This unit was a unit of Confederate cavalry partisans which would get on horseback and launch long overland raids into Union territory, carrying out certain actions under cover and then quickly making their way back before they could be detected. So eventually the Union took to viewing these folks as nothing more than common petty criminals led by Mosby. So usually when they were captured, they faced summary execution. And in September of 1864, Overby and 5 others were captured. Immediately, 4 of them were dragged through the streets and shot in the back of the head. The 2 men left were Overby and Love, and they gave them an option. They said, if you rat out where Mosby is, we'll let you off, or at least we'll just put you in jail until the end of the war. Of course, they said no, and Love was immediately hanged from a walnut tree. And then they beat Overby, and Overby said, I will never reveal it, and his last words were, Mosby will hang 10 of you for every one of us. Of course, the troops under Custer, of Little Bighorn fame, showed no mercy, and they hanged him from a walnut tree right alongside Love, and they pinned a note to his chest that said, such is the fate of all of Mosby's men. William Overby is actually buried at the Confederate cemetery up in Newnan, but until 1997, this was his only marker in his hometown. He's buried next to his family members who were in the area for decades before as pioneers. Fascinating Appalachian-style graves, very common in settlers from Wales, Ireland, and Scotland. Well, up until 1997, Overby and his companions were buried in that cemetery right near the old walnut tree. Of course, the Sons of Confederate Veterans in the local area for years had been trying to get him buried back here in his hometown. And eventually, in 1997, they managed to give him a hero's burial at a local cemetery not far from where he was born. I think it's a fascinating story of someone who joined a partisan group in the Civil War and was killed at a very young age in his early 20s. And right next to Overby's grave on the outskirts of the cemetery, you have the pioneer graves as well as the graves of slaves for 6 separate families in the local area. This was an Eagle Scout project from a few years ago, and you can see a quote here by Lincoln from the Emancipation Proclamation. Shall be then, thenceforward, and forever free. And these are the 6 families. And keep in mind that a big part of this cemetery here is not just slaves, it's early pioneers as well. And it's interesting to see that they were buried side by side at the same church.